Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of True Sight, brought to you by the Daily Dot, your go-to source for all Dota 2 news, memes, what the hell
mostly.
else does Dota 2
Lot
do?
of stuff.
Heroes, turrets.
Did you say heroes?
Yeah, I said
I
heroes.
thought Heroes of the Storm for some reason. I was like,
this
ew.
time I got it. I figured I'd get it right off the bat. So if I accidentally say champions,
So guys,
later,
champions, lots
I
of
can
those in
blame
this
my
game.
fucking coworkers. Anyway, welcome to the show. We've got a bit of a truncated show for you tonight, but still a lot of great content coming your way. Sadly, Liquid Matumba Man had to cancel. If you're here to see him, we're gonna have him on again very soon. But if you're here to see him, you should also be excited to see our guest, Austin Capitalist Walsh. Austin, can you hear us, sir?
I can indeed. You both sound very lovely.
And as do you, as always.
Thank you.
For those of you who aren't familiar with capitalist work, what are you, living under a rock?
I know, right? It's
Am I-
okay. He's
am
got
I right?
got the voice of an angel, multiple angels.
That
actually.
handsome baritone. And when, by the way, and I will mention this because it's relevant. When we ask before the show, we like to publicize that people are going to be on here, and we ask people for photos. And Matumba Man sends us this hilarious but personable shot of him going like he's in like a goofy beanie, and he looks really excited. We ask Austin here for a shot, and he sends us his headshot from the Calvin Klein shoot.
Oh, yeah.
It's just this like dark, like brooding, like just.
He made
Here's what I
weep.
like to do. Here's
This
what I
is-
like to do.
oh,
I
boy,
like
here
to
we go.
set the expectations really high and then completely lowball that. That's why I'm showing up. You know, I'm in my pajamas right now. I throw on a couple of clothes. You know, it's all good. Most people think you're supposed to, under promise and over deliver. Nah, not me. I over promise and under deliver, baby. That's what I'm all about.
Because you're an everyman,
yeah.
right? You're like, you get the gig booked, you get in there with the sweet headshots and the smooth talk, and then you're like, is there free food at this thing? Is there,
That's my question everywhere, though.
is there free food at this thing?
Show up at the
And
barbershop.
you're sorely
asking for free
disappointed
shit.
every time.
Fried
you
chicken
show up
sometimes,
on this
baby.
show.
You're the one who just raids the candy bowl, isn't it? Like
Nah,
every single store
it
that has a
depends.
candy
It
bowl,
really
you're like,
depends,
this is
man.
mine.
For those
Oh
of you
my
who
God.
watch Best of Three, actually, Donka on that show, another one of our co-hosts for a fighting game show, literally ate all our trail mix in the off. Like, nobody got a bite. He just showed up like 3 weeks in a row. And the fourth week, he has the balls to show up and say, you guys are out of trail mix.
Where's the trail mix, guys?
Anyway, we're not here to talk about second-rate esports. We're here to talk about
Whoa!
Dota 2. More specifically, we're here to talk about the incredible, ever-evolving story of the great Dota schism of 2016.
Did you come up with that yourself?
The
I
great
have to
Dota
ask.
schism? I most certainly did.
Okay.
Although I struggled, I can't remember if schism is spelled with a Z or an S.
It's okay.
And
I
I'm
noticed.
honestly still not sure.
I googled the hell out of that.
And now that the chips have fallen, now that the dust has settled a little bit, Austin, who do you think came out ahead in the great Dota schism of 2016?
Well, I mean, I guess the first topic you really got to tackle when it comes to all of this is going to be Team Secret, right? This is obviously like everyone will look towards Team Secret as being one of the big winners because, hey, they got arguably one of the best players in the world in our tour, and I would say easily the best and most consistent offlaner in Universe. So this was huge wins on both sides, but then you also have to consider some of the other fallout. They just managed to secure Theban as their full-time coach. 1437 is in there. That's exactly what they want, is a full-time coach and not someone who just shows up for events when they don't manage to qualify. And then the other great coach of Dota 2, Bulba, is now playing for Evil Geniuses. So he's also out of the running to be able to coach somebody. It's like Secret not only in players but also coaches. It's like their whole entire thing just worked out. I wouldn't be surprised, the memes about Puppy and like Supreme and all that, and like going with the glasses and everything else. Like this really does look like it's something you would put up on a wall with a whole bunch of pictures and start drawing strings across and trying to figure out the way that Puppy managed to just like break the Dota 2 scene into this ultimate win for him. But it is pretty funny. I think that Secret is definitely the very like obvious clear winner, but at the same time, I think that everyone expected Team Secret of last year. I mean, if you look at that squad, that was probably one of the most individually talented squads that we will ever have in the Dota 2 scene. I mean, you had some of the greatest captains and players all on one team, and that didn't really work out so well. So,
Yeah.
there is something to be said about perhaps overvaluing individual talent and just assuming that a squad is actually going to be able to succeed.
Now, I'm actually glad you brought up the idea of individual talent because obviously this was just a huge power play in terms of the individuals that they got. I mean, chemistry remains to be seen. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out, but on paper, this is just an incredible roster. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of us like to default and say that Arteezy is one of the best players in the world. And I don't think that you can argue that he isn't one of the best players in the world. My question for you guys is Arteezy, now having disrupted 2 full rosters, worth all this effort considering the results that he's posted, the times that he's been on Dream Teams?
Short answer, no.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, like, come on, look at the past. I mean, you had, like, Team Secret 2.0, the one with Arteezy, like, when Arteezy was originally on it, was just like, by all means, the Backstreet Boys of the Dota world. It was like, holy crap, what the hell happened?
That's your choice of 90s.
Yeah, if you say NSYNC, I'm not going to own you anymore. I'm just going to disown you. Just like, I don't even know this man anymore. Backstreet Boys, forever.
Fair enough.
All right, anyway. I feel like that was the All-Star team. That was the dream team. And then, like, they won, like, what was it, like 4 tournaments in a row? Just dominated everybody. And then they get to the international, and then they just kind of, like, stumble over their feet, which was amazing. I mean, like, everybody kind of, like, expected them to win, and when they got knocked out so early, it was like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
But, like, now that they brought him back, I'm guessing they're not blaming him. They're probably just like, he was great. But I also feel like since he was on there, his head is kind of big. He's a great player. I just don't want to, like, I don't feel like they should bet their entire, like, moving forward next year or next 6 months on that guy. What do you think, Capitalist?
See, I'm going to go the exact opposite route because I'm a fan of NSYNC, and I'm also
my God!
There we go. You're outvoted, baby.
Oh my
that
God!
our tour is well worth the effort. I will just say that, like, I have heard secondhand stories that our tour essentially has always been the go-to player that everyone wants to be able to play with. Like, the people just always, like, every single team wants to be able to play with him because he is so individually talented. I've heard players, like, pro players watch his stream. They do. You think they watch anybody else's stream? No, they watch our tour stream because they know they can actually learn from what Arteezy's doing. I think that I also know that Arteezy's, like, he's been, like, grinding it out lately, apparently, for the mid lane, like, harder than anybody else really does. I think he's absolutely worth the effort. I think that, like, the ego and all that stuff, like, I'm not sure, like, I know our tour in a somewhat personal level, but I have no idea what he's like on a team, and I don't think, like, 99.99% of the community really knows what that's like. But that being said, everything that I've heard does sound like he is one of the most, I would say easily, like, top 3 when it comes to individual talent, when it comes to Dota 2, and also is incredibly hardworking. So I would say he's absolutely worth the effort for pretty much almost any roster. I think there are very few rosters where you actually wouldn't want to have Arteezy, and I think there are rosters like Alliance who are very much like, that team focus, family kind of focus, where they're already set up, and something that bringing in Arteezy would just kind of, like, disrupt things. But I think for lineups like Evil Geniuses and Team Secret, that having Arteezy is absolutely worth all the effort.
Now, the follow-up question I have for you guys, because, I mean, again, I have no, personal interaction with Arteezy, and I obviously haven't been in the communications when the teams are playing, but, I mean, if you look at the evidence, and I'm not arguing one way or the other, I'm just curious. Sad Boys, Team Secret 2.0, Evil Geniuses, post-TI, and now this new Team Secret lineup. And the common thread, if we exclude the most recent roster change, is that none of them were able to achieve that final goal. None of them were able to get past that hurdle, despite having Arteezy on the lineup. What needs to change about this Team Secret roster? What about this situation needs to change so that Arteezy can finally get the Aegis?
I think there's a lot of things. I actually real quickly want to dispel the myth that I think like he's going to have too big of an ego because of the fact that we've listed all those reasons, right? That he hasn't actually won a TI. That's the beat right now. It's right. It's like Evil Genius, 4 TI winners plus Arteezy.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? Like that those sort of mean like that's only going to push him further, right? So he's going to want to be able to do everything to be able to secure that TI win. And I think this roster is very clearly maybe not his best opportunity. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say between the old Evil Geniuses lineup and this current lineup, which one he would have had a better opportunity with. But I think that in general, I think there was something Eternal Levy said about anytime that you bring like new people into a roster and you get like a new team formed together, there's all these fresh ideas that come to the table. And maybe that's exactly what makes this team stronger than Evil Geniuses, is that we saw Evil Geniuses kind of play themselves out with Arteezy. They weren't actually really winning anything. They weren't able to really cross that finish line when they should have. Majors, both the majors. I mean, that's all that's important to Dota 2 players at this point is majors and TIs. So if that doesn't happen in the first 2 rounds, then yeah, maybe it's time to shake things up. So I think Arteezy, this is probably his best opportunity, and I would say that what needs to happen is just better synergy within the team. Obviously, we learned a lot about the drama that happened between Kuro and Artur after TI. Obviously, Kuro isn't a part of this lineup, and I know that he's can be kind of a divisive figure, similar to Artur. So hopefully this lineup does kind of gel a bit better. Obviously, Artur and Universe get along just fine. Puppy has had nothing but nice things to say about Artur even after the breakup. So this lineup does seem to already have. And we also know that Jackie and Artur get along really, really well. They're BFFs
a little
forever.
too well. Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
I would almost be concerned that their friendship is going to get in their way rather than the opposite of what old Team Secret is. But it seems like everything is kind of set up for this team to succeed on a more personal level than the last one was, right? Because the last one was more of like, it's getting all these all-stars together, great Dota minds and all that sort of thing, and getting them all under one roof, and that ended up causing a lot of division. This one is kind of similar, but you can see already that there's going to be personal synergy, I would say, between the team members.
All right, now switching gears, I want to hear from both of you. What do you think is the most shocking shift that you've seen in the Dota scene? It doesn't have to just be NA; it could be anywhere in the world. But what do you think was something you did not expect to come out of this?
Are we excluding Team Secret? Because like my default answer is Universe.
Yeah, that was shocking. Okay, default away from the Team Secrets and EGs.
Can I be sarcastic and say Xiao coming back?
Yeah, that was weird. I did not see that coming.
Are we really surprised that guy came out of retirement just before TI?
Yeah.
It was like I remember people were making that prediction like the moment he announced it. He was like, he'll be back for TI. Yeah,
and that's like almost as popular as like Chuan putting together another failed lineup before TI is pros coming out of retirement.
I think pros will come back right before TI is going to be the thing.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think that the most shocking move for me, honestly, was probably the shakeup between Evil Geniuses and Digital Chaos, and not because of Aoi and Bulba going to a top tier team. I think they're both incredibly experienced players. If you watch Bulba and AUI play their respective roles, the roles that they're going to be playing on EG, they actually do an exceptional job. Aoi, able to find farm on the map at a position 4. Of course, he's able to find map when he's position 1, or farm on the map when he's position 1.
Yeah.
Bulba, people are saying it's a discount universe, and while he may not have the results, I would argue that Bulba has just as much game knowledge, just as much poise, and arguably just as much experience as Universe without maybe making it to the summit like Universe has. But the really shocking part about that was how things shook out for Digital Chaos. I mean, we saw Suns fans saying dead team. We saw Sajadine saying, well, I get more time to catch up on Harry Potter. It's like all of these tweets are suggesting, well, we're done and dusted, wrap up the branding, put away the t-shirts, we're officially done. And then they end up with Weehaw, Misery, God, I can't even remember the rest of it, but lineup that, while it was technically the scraps from the other team, with some work is incredibly individually talented. And
Yeah.
so it's like Digital Chaos sort of gives up UR and Resolution, and, some sort of 1437, and then suddenly they end up with this roster in their lap. That was the most shocking thing to me, is Digital Chaos is still around, and the roster they got out of it is actually has an incredible level of potential.
Looking forward to DC, actually.
Yeah, I think their team is actually going to be much better than the old one. I think that obviously getting Weehan Misery, especially given that they performed very well at the Shanghai Major but like before that, in fact, it was talked about in the Dota scene. Like, I think it was a tweet from Skim or something, who tweeted out like, I'm a nobody, and even I knew that like Misery and Weeha, their positions on Team Secret were kind of iffy, and that's simply because their performances just really were not up to par. But they definitely upped their play at the Shanghai Major. Given that we see that they can perform at this like highest level when the chips are on the table, those two are obviously great pickups. And then you have Moo, who I think is like very clearly one of the most individually talented players coming out of North America right now. I think like I have like a short list of players who I think are going to be like superstars in the next like year and a half, and there are two people right now on that list. One of which is Moo, and the other is the European player Kezu. And both of those guys, simply because they're just like, you could just tell they just ooze talent everywhere. And it seems like their attitudes are not so bad, especially Kezu. Kezu has a really good attitude. So I think DC was definitely one of the big winners. Other two surprises I actually wanted to bring up was one in the Chinese scene, which is Fenrir and FY, that duo breaking apart.
Yeah.
That like shattered my brain. I'm like, no, that's my favorite duo. How do I do things? Like, that hits me right in the feels. FY has a special heart. Yeah, a special place in my heart, especially because of the TI5 that match they had against Cloud9 and everything that happened there. That was an amazing game and an amazing cast that I had. So that just had a more personal meaning to me, but that was actually insane. But I think that kind of shakeup was very much necessary in the Chinese scene. And the other thing was another support duo splitting, Lil and FNG, which really took me by surprise. I consider both of those guys, like, it's rare to, as an English caster, to be friends with some of the CIS players just because there's a language barrier, but those two guys I actually am like pretty good friends with. Every single time I see them events, I'm very happy to see them. I give them a hug. I always try and talk to them for a while. And so it was really awkward learning that all of a sudden they've kicked Lil out of the team. Lil, who I think is an incredible support. Like, I can't believe, I can only imagine, like, it must be some sort of, like, they just don't share the same vision or something, because Lil is definitely way too talented to be left out in the cold like that. So that was the other split that really took me by big surprise.
The inquiring minds want to know. We've got the chat who is pinging us mercilessly.
Yeah.
There we go. To talk about the elephant in the room, which we touched on just briefly, which is AUI to the 1 with EG and Bulba to the 3.
I'm shocked.
I'd love to hear your opinions. Personally, I feel like it's a good move. Maybe I'm blinded by blue, but to be completely honest, having watched AUI when he played carry for Digital Chaos, was against inferior, slightly weaker opposition, shall we say, but still showing some real flashes of brilliance in the carry role. Bulba being another consistent member of that team, arguably because of the trinity of AUI, Bulba, and Resolution. Digital Chaos was getting better when the schism happened. Capitalism, I'll take your thoughts first, then we'll go to Lee. How do you feel, what happens to EG's ceiling and their shot at an Aegis this year with this new configuration?
I would say that, like, when they announced their roster, I think it was pretty clear that, at least in my head, that AUI should play carry and Fear should play support. For a couple of reasons. First of all, I think that both players are individually talented enough that they can slide into either role really easily. I think Fear has adapted to the support. I mean, whatever. I can't even say adapted. Fear's just Fear. He can do whatever, like, whatever role he could. Like, they could create a new role in Dota. They could add, like, a 6th player, and I'm sure Fear would just naturally be able to do it because he understands Dota in and out. But AUI, I think, is also very individually talented. He was one of my very favorite carries back in the pot and bottom and Team Dignitas days. So I actually was really excited at the prospect of him going back to carry. But the other big one is the fact that there was a reason that AUI was kicked in the first place, right? And that was apparently some sort of division between PPD and AUI. Felt like apparently AUI, his communication, like there was just something that it didn't really gel, right, with EG. And I would say that it's very important for your supports to share vision in just like knowing how to play the game out and, basically being on the same page. And so PPD and Fear have obviously worked that out. That doesn't seem to be a problem. They're kind of captain and co-captain, right? And so it just works for them to both be supports. And then AUI playing the carry, I think, is just going to gel better with EG than apparently TI5.
And I'll sorry to push the issue, but Bulba. Bulba's the big question mark in this team. Is Bulba good enough for this lineup, as many people have sort of awkwardly asked, to put them in a position to win TI? Is he that good? Is he that knowledgeable that he can actually maybe not fill Universe's shoes, but at least come close enough to make this team competitive and put it back at the top again?
I think the community is a little bit unaware of how incredibly knowledgeable. Like Bulba is probably one of the top minds when it comes to Dota. I've had conversations with him. I also really trust Blitz's opinion, and Blitz has had longer talks because they were co-coaches on Team Liquid, so they had a lot of time together. And he told me it's just like Bulba always he is so incredible when it comes to knowledge. He's helped me learn so many different things, and every single time I've had a chance to have a conversation with him about Dota, he repeatedly always expands my mind in things Dota related. So I think that he is definitely a big boost when it comes to the knowledge department. The thing that people really should be asking themselves a little bit more specifically is not whether or not Bulba's good enough as a player, is he knowledgeable enough, or all those sort of things. He is good enough as a player, and he is definitely good enough in the knowledge department to be an asset to EG. The question is whether or not he's able to outperform Universe when it comes to his peak, or if he's able to give the same kind of consistency the Universe does. Because the problem is, I think that Bulba is a very emotional player, and I think that is probably going to be the biggest factor going forward for Evil Geniuses, is whether or not Bulba, as being that kind of emotional player, is able to keep the same kind of consistency that Universe did. Universe has this kind of presence on the map where he just disappears off the map. The enemy doesn't know what's happening, but there's a sense of dread, right? That Universe is coming. You don't know where he is, but he's coming for you, right? It's like the spooky tales that you tell your children, Universe is coming for you. If you go too far forward in that off lane, Universe is going to be there, man. But Bulba has already shown in previous TIs that when it comes down to clutch moments, he can make incredible plays. So I don't think there's really a question of whether or not Bulba's good enough at his peak, but I think a better question is whether or not he's able to provide the same kind of consistency that Universe does as an offlaner.
And I think it has to be said that a lot of people, what they like about Universe, because let's be honest, while Universe is a high impact player, he isn't hitting 5-man black holes every game. He isn't absolutely destroying everybody single-handedly every game. But the thing that he does do extremely well, he does on occasion, obviously, and probably more frequently than any other offlaner in the world. But what he does do extremely well is he he will not lose the offlane for you. He just won't. And I think at this point, if at least what I've seen from Bulba is that if he can do at least that and then synergize well with this team, then it puts him on good footing. Lee, your thoughts?
Actually, let's go back a couple steps. I feel like Aoi being on the same team as PPD again kind of worries me, because PPD almost single-handedly just singled out Aoi as being a pain during TI5. Mm-hmm. And moving forward, it's really cool to have PPD and Aoi on the same team again. Yeah, I love it. But I'm kind of worried about if there's going to be some issues there. Moving forward again, I think Bulba he's been in the scene for so long. The man is almost as, I would say he's just as, if not more knowledgeable than Fear, because Fear's just been on EG since 2011. Bulba's jumped around quite a bit, and Bulba's probably had a lot more different experiences.
He's taken his lumps.
He's taken his lumps. Yes. And I feel like now, I mean, Dota is one of those, Dota's probably the only esport where I say that knowledge gained from like in maturity is almost as important as reaction time. Yeah, we've got these like 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who have amazing fast reaction times who play the carry role. But like in position 4 or 5 and even like 6, like you kind of need to know what to expect. Just like Universe becoming the spooky Night Stalker that shows up out of nowhere in offlane. I mean, like, no, he doesn't play Night Stalker often. But he's like the boogeyman. Like, you worry about him. Oh my God, Universe is gone. I mean, like, you don't let him farm. And I think that most people that we're talking about right now are in EG are those people who you would have to worry about. I think that given amount of farm, given an amount of like time to gel as a team, they could probably win TI 2 times in a row, which was the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions to be answered, but one thing that I like about this squad is they're certainly playing with a chip on their shoulder now. I think they definitely feel like they have something to prove, and that's usually not a bad thing for a team. Cap, I know that you've got some casting to do pretty soon. Well, maybe not soon, but you'd at least like a nap, and we'd like to get one more piece of insight out of you before we close up shop. And that question is, who are people sleeping on? Because frankly, I don't want to answer the question for you, but I have watched Empire lately, and despite Empire supposedly being sort of a ragtag group, they're putting up some decent results. They look good. I'd love to hear your thoughts on who are we not talking about that we will be as soon as the major comes around.
Oh man, that's actually going to be pretty rough because I kind of want to shine a light on some of like the tier 2, tier 3 teams. Maybe they may not actually make it into the major, but I think people are kind of sleeping on them. At least when it comes to the European scene, I think certain teams like, I would love to see Adfinum do well. That's the old London Conspiracy. I think that some of those guys are incredibly individually talented. Spartan seems to be a really great leader. Thug I met at MLG Austin at the X Games. This was like a year ago or something, and he is incredibly talented as a mid laner. And Radara just seems like really, really dedicated to the game. I think that certain teams like them and Cookies could actually surprise people and be able to provide some sort of upset when it comes to the qualifier. Other than that, the European scene, I think people might be sleeping. I hate to say this just because the Alliance fanboyism is very, very strong. But you really shouldn't count Alliance out in this kind of patch, despite not being able to do that well to the Shanghai Major. I definitely wouldn't count that out. Other than that, I think the CIS region has the most, just because the CIS region has kind of fallen apart and split apart and now everything seems to be kind of shattered, I think it has the most potential to surprise. And I think it's the hardest region to actually be able to call out right now because it seems like Team Spirit, for example, look really good. I think that may actually be a Go Black squad that succeeds. That it could actually be it with Funnick and Illidan plus Iceberg just being Iceberg. I've watched a lot of games of him, back when I was casting like a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 Dota. I got a lot of opportunity to watch him, and he can be really good. Empire, I'll be honest, I'm not quite with you there. I don't think I'm a big fan of Empire, but I would put much more of my chips into Team Spirit as of right now.
All right, fair enough. And anybody stand out to you, Lee? And why is it Team Freedom?
Oh my God, Team Freedom. No, honestly, I think it's MVP Phoenix.
Yep.
Phoenix, they did so well.
But is anybody really sleeping on them at this point?
Yeah, I think honestly,
think so?
I think people are still sleeping on them. I mean, look at C-Deck. C-Deck kind of showed up at TFI, then where are they now? I mean, MVP Phoenix, I feel they had their light, they had their shining, gleaming moment of awesomeness, and most people are just okay, that was cool, and moving on. But I'm curious to see what happens in the next 6 months. I'm really excited to see them at Manila. I'm excited to see them at TI6. I mean, I'm also really curious about, like, there's so many teams, like Empire. I don't know about. I can't back you up.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
sorry.
I get it, guys.
As soon as you just said it, I was just like,
Jeez.
yeah, that's a thing.
I just meant they've been good lately.
They've
That's
been good.
all
I mean, they
meant.
have lately in the past 20 minutes. Did you watch their pub match? I'm sorry, Team Spirit. I feel like we can see some good things coming from them, I guess. I don't know. I mean, like right now, this shuffle, so many different personalities have changed hands where, like, I kind of, as a person that watches Dota, I kind of associate, like, the players with the team. When I think of EG, I think Fear and PPD.
Sure.
Now, like, looking at these teams as they shuffle their hands and no longer, Aoi isn't on DC anymore. It's just Yawar isn't on DC anymore.
Yeah.
I just like, who are these teams? It's like I see the same logos, but the people on them are no longer the same. So I mean, like, I'd say MVP Phoenix. I'm looking forward to. I'm just looking forward to the next 6 months of Dota just to see what happens after this great schism.
I would actually like to add one more thing,
Please.
which is the Southeast Asia region as a whole.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
let's add that. Sleeping on that region, there's actually been some pretty crazy upsets lately from the ESL 1 Manila qualifier. Like a Vietnamese team managed to get into the semifinals, NGE, that's just crazy.
And then Fnatic 3-0ing MVP. I believe it was in the final.
Wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Are we all forgetting that Black went to Southeast Asia a long time ago and he left? And then it's just like we're following Black, and now they're growing. It's like he went there, sowed some seeds of knowledge, and then was like, I'm out.
He's like the Hulk. He has to come in and he has to whip people into shape, but then sadly he has to grab his bindle stiff and head down the road because he's caught too much chaos.
What the hell is a bindle stiff?
All right, Capitalist, is there anything? Where could people reach you? Where could people find you on the interwebs?
People can find me, Dota Capitalist, pretty much everything. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I don't have a Snapchat because I don't really see the point just yet, but maybe it'll happen someday.
No.
All those things, you can find me.
Well, that's perfect. Well, if there's one thing we can all agree on, despite our debate and our 50-50 split on Empire, is that we're all extremely excited.
Is your voice worth two?
All of a sudden, 50-50
it's
split.
the
I was
perks
like,
of being the host. What can I say?
my math is wrong.
I think we can all agree we're extremely excited to see these teams play some goddamn Dota. Capitalist, thank you so much for coming on the show, man, and we appreciate you staying up so damn late at night to join us. As for us, that's going to do it tonight. Hopefully we'll get Liquid Matuma Man back on some other time, and we wish him well. If you want to check out the VOD after this, go over to youtube.com/daily.esports. Hit that follow button if you want to see more live content, or if you're feeling particularly generous, give us $4.99 a month for the subscription. You get the dot fire. Just give us $5.
Please.
Just PayPal it to us. You get access to the dot fire and dot fan emotes. We like to use them in when team fights go poorly. In Dota
Shit
2.
just hit the fan, yo.
I just spam them like crazy. If you want to check out more of our esports coverage, go over to facebook.com/.esports, over on Twitter @.esports, and I believe that's all of them.
Dude, you've got so much social media. What do you do?
We do.
Snapchat, Instagram?
We're on that weird Russian.
Really?
No, not really.
Oh, I was like, whoa, bro. I'm on Peach. I just looked at what the hell that was. I don't know what
Cap is signaling. Apparently, he's on it, but sadly,
you on Peach? Find me, baby.
He's been muted. Anyway, folks, that's gonna do it for us tonight. Join us next week, next Wednesday, for more Dota news, analysis, and memery. And in the meantime, play some damn Dota.
Is that a thing?